V Gates. How's it going, guys and gals? Yes, it's been almost, well, 5 months since I've posted a video here on YouTube on this channel, and just wanted to put a quick update video here. It may not be quick, but an update video on where I've been, what I've been up to, things going on here in the workshop, which has not been a whole lot of anything. Just been super busy, folks, with life. As I stated on other videos, this is a part-time for fun venture, mainly just to communicate things that are going here on in my workshop and my hobbying, and to connect with some of you guys out there that are into the same things that I'm into. So basically just been really busy. I have a seasonal business, as many of you may know, and it's been crazy this year. I've been very busy, which is a good thing. So it only affords me the opportunity to do things on the weekend, and on the weekends that they've just been consumed with. My wife and I are avid cyclists. We do a lot of here in Ohio, we have a system, a lot over the country has a system of what's called rail trails, and that's where they have taken old abandoned rail lines and torn out the railroad tracks, and they've paved them and made them into bike and pedestrian ways where, you know, the cars and pedestrians and bicycles are separated so that there's no chance for any accidents. So that's where we tend to ride 100% of the time. We have a nice what they call a supported bike rack that I put on the back of my Beamer, and we drive to one of these locations. They're all over the state. They're running through little small towns that have little cafes and shops, and so we kind of make a whole day of it. We basically have a lot of fun doing that. We travel. I do a little traveling, do a day's cycle, then we eat dinner or lunch or both at a little small town, do a little shopping, things like that. Just really busy, cycling. We're avid hikers. We like to hike a lot, so the weather's been pretty good here in Ohio this summer, so we did a lot of bicycling, a lot of just fun stuff, being outside. So we have a lot of great state parks here in our state, where there's a lot of great hiking. So yeah, we've been busy doing a lot of that this summer. Busy with work. My oldest, my son, has just started college this year, so as we got to the late part of summer, we were getting him off to college. He lives about a 2-hour drive from here, is where he's attending school. And so it's taking him to orientation. He's in the marching band for this college. We also earned his Eagle Scout, and obviously with high school graduation in spring, he earned his Eagle Scout rank for scouting. On and on and on. My daughter's busy with, she's a cheerleader in our local high school. She's active in dancing. She's a competitive dancer. So you factor work, weekend trips, cycling and hiking. You factor in, 2 kids getting to the point where they're really active and doing a lot of things. Eats up a lot of time. So my point is, guys, enjoy life. Just don't sit in your house doing models all the time, although I do love doing that. My modeling tends to be mostly in the winter time when it's harder to get outside. The weather's not conducive to being outside, and I have indoor time. So get out, see the world. There's a lot of things to do. Don't just sit in your house modeling all the time. So the key to life, as I found with anything, is balance. You should have a good balance of activities that you're involved in. A couple other things I guess I kind of wanted to touch on. The last couple videos we had done, I did part of a battle report where we had a good table set up. It was the Russians versus the Germans. We did an army list. We got to the point where it was probably turn 4, and then as you know, I leave my games set up and I'll go away from the table because I have a dedicated gaming area down here. So it turns out my nephew was visiting us from the army, and him and my son came down and redid the board and had their own game, which is fine. I don't really care, to be honest with you, but they kind of did away with the game I was halfway through, basically, so that's why that never panned out. So we'll redo that battle. I'm going to completely reset the board with the same setup, and we'll redo that battle, and we're going to be focusing again on the smoke rules. And there's been a lot of controversy with the smoke rules. I've had some what I call rule whores come at me with, you can't do that, the Russians didn't use smoke, on and on and on and on. You can't fire smoke at specific targets, you have to fire smoke in general areas, on and on and on. Well, so we'll go over that. We're going to compare the book rules to my modified house rules. Okay, so, and to make it fair, what we have done as a house rule, we even though in the Russian list it doesn't say smoke bombardments with their artillery pieces, we allow the Russians to use smoke. Okay, you can pretend that they captured German smoke shells. I don't know, whatever you want to do. It just seemed fair to us that you afford the Russians the same tactic as the other team. Now, if we're going to a tournament situation and they're playing strict rules, obviously you're going to have to stick to whatever the book says in your army list limits you to. So just a shout out there to the guys combing the internet looking for people that might not be playing strict rules. You're not going to be satisfied with this channel. I mean, we're rarely playing strict rules. And a lot of times it's a nod and a handshake, and if something doesn't make sense, we just change it and we just roll the dice. So you've got that coming up. We're going to replay that game so that you can see the full battle played out, basically the same setup, and we'll be focusing on those smoke rules because they do make a big difference. But I will point out that before my nephew and my son obliterated that table with a different game, the Germans were losing that match, and the Russians were winning. So even though the Germans were using smoke pretty heavily against the Russians, the Russians were winning. So there's that. So the other topic and the other thing that we were working on here at the shop was and this may be a sore subject we're delving into. It's going to be the topic of this video. It's going to be, alert ahead that we're going to be doing some Games Workshop bashing on this video, because one of the things we were finishing here at the shop that I still have just a tiny few finishing touches to put on a Empire army for Warhammer Fantasy. And many of you who've watched my videos know that I went out and I purchased the rule book. I purchased well, actually now I have 3 complete armies. All right, I have a Beastman army and a Dark Elf army and a Empire army. And any of you that know anything about Games Workshop products know that I've got a substantial investment in these game systems. I bought some of their, I bought the Sorcerer's Workshop and some other things that I've assembled to go along with the scenery for this game. So a substantial amount of time, a substantial amount of money invested into this game, and then we got into this spring 2015 and the rug was pulled out from underneath my feet. We had heard rumblings of this in 2014 that there were going to be some changes coming. Most of us assumed, well, they're going to do another set of rules, they're going to clean up the rules because they're really overly complicated. That would be my take from the game as I started doing some of the test battles to work out the rules. Number one, getting ahead of myself here. Number one, very upset that they pulled the plug entirely on Warhammer Fantasy and have gone with this Age of Sigmar, which is basically a skirmish game. Okay, they've gone away from the mass tabletop battles because, let's face it, where they steered this game 10, 15 years, 20 years ago was bigger and bigger and bigger armies, right? Because they want to keep you buying more and more models. They're constantly changing the army books every 3, 4, 5 years that basically encourage you to buy more models, discontinued models, then they've got new models. Look, we all know what the game is. The game is push more models, push a game that requires a high amount of models to even play the game. And what's happened is, as they have pushed that to being a bigger and bigger and bigger battle, mass army battle, less and less and less people played because it required so much money to play the game. You already automatically carved the pie of your market down so small that it basically started to fizzle out. So instead of attacking it where they started scaling down the armies, right, they've just discontinued the game, which is pretty ridiculous. You can't even get on the Games Workshop website and purchase these models anymore. You've got to go get on eBay, Craigslist, and try to scrummage up models if you're still wanting to play the game and buy armies that are no longer available. That's kind of what you're forced to do at this point, which is complete rubbish. Okay, so you've got a fan base out here. At least make the models still limited availability. You've got the molds, you've got the ability to keep manufacturing the models. At least make them available only online from your online source for the avid players. Still support the game, and yeah, yes, come out with the skirmish side of the game, and you could use a skirmish in conjunction with the mass battles and have the two work together, so to speak. So you can turn the skirmish side of it into a larger battle if you'd like, to settle a dispute or whatever as part of your narrative. But no, they decided to completely pull the plug. They're not supporting the game anymore. They're not going to have any more rule sets coming out. No more army books. From what I understand, they've made the models available to some wholesalers that are just kind of just getting rid of them, from what I understand. So my response to this is no more Games Workshop. I've defended them in the past. I've defended their pricing policies, which were ridiculous. You know, in that this is a game that if you don't have a good income, then that's not going to be a game system for you to get into. But honestly, that's gotten to the point where they completely do not care about the fans. They don't care about the avid players. You've got people that played Warhammer Fantasy for years and years and years, and now they're stuck, you know, grabbing up as much of the models that are floating around out there as they can, and they can still continue to play, but it's not going to be supported. At some point in the future, you're going to have to start going to another company for your models if you want to keep developing Warhammer Fantasy armies. So my solution is, at this point, I completely, totally boycott all Games Workshop products. I'm not selling my stuff. I'm keeping them as part of my general collection. But what I've decided to do is I'm still going to be able to use the models that I've purchased and invested in, but I'm going to just change the rule set. And the rule set I'm switching to is going to be a shout to Mantic Games. I'm going to go over to Kings of War. I've already got the free downloads on my tablet, and we'll be working through that this winter. We'll be doing some test games with my Games Workshop models, my fantasy models, converted over to Kings of War rule set. First impressions of Kings of War is it's a lot cleaner rule set. Okay, so here's a good comparison, and it's not going to be an exact comparison, but just think about this. I'm an avid chess player. I love playing chess. My wife and I play chess together. Chess has a set of rules that's pretty clear-cut, pretty straightforward, and then all the focus is on strategy. in the game. Okay, that's what Kings of War has brought to this rule set. Is the rules are clear cut. They're not overly complicated. You're not spending 15-20 minutes trying to figure out something that's going on the board that's kind of complicated. It's very simple. It's very straightforward, and then it puts all the emphasis on army building and strategy. Okay, and it's scalable, so you can do a smaller battle that takes an hour to play, or you can scale it up where you can have an all-day battle depending on how many models you want to throw on the board and the points that you want to throw out. So there's that. So at this point, no more Games Workshop products. I will not promote Games Workshop products. Looking at the new models coming out from Mantic for the Kings of War line, they're really good models. They're a lot less expensive than Games Workshop. So if that whole genre appeals to you, the whole fantasy miniature battles, you're definitely going to want to go straight to Kings of War. It's a great company. The products are reasonably priced. There's a lot of substitutions you can do, and the owner, Ronnie Renton, who runs Mantic, obviously he wants you to buy his models, but the army list that they have, which comes with your rules, is really geared so you can buy models from other companies and factor them into your army. So you can collect models from a wide range and then substitute them in for various units in the Mantic, and Mantica is what it's called, which is their world. So there's that. So going forward, we're going to be looking at Kings of War. So I'll be essentially at this point, my two main games are going to be Flames of War and Kings of War. So 40K, I pretty much stopped playing that pretty much years ago. I still have a lot of their older models. So I'm not a big 40K guy. And if I did get back into using the 40K models that I do have, I have an Orc army and a Space Marine army. A lot of older models, as one of my other videos will show you. We're talking, I started playing 40K back in '89, so back towards where the beginnings were. So a lot of the models I have are from that era, from about '89 to '93. If that gives you an idea, I have a lot of the old metal stuff. I've got the old style, Mach 4 Space Marines, with the pointy helmets, which I love. I love the models. Now, I still love Games Workshop models, but when you're doing that kind of stuff, as a company is doing that kind of stuff to their fan base and the folks that have supported their game system for so long, that's time where there's other game systems out there you can substitute in, still use those models that you have invested in, and still use them in another game system. It's not that difficult. You could literally sit down and just invent your own game rules if you really wanted to. You don't even need to use anyone else's game rules. You just have to figure out what are the shooting values, what are the attack values, and how you want to do the dice rolls. And then the rest is going to come down to movement and strategy. So, right. So really, when companies are doing this, we don't have to stay beholden to this nonsense. So that's kind of the lay of the land. Other things going on. Let's see. This is late November. We're looking at November 14th, and so this is the day after, morning after, day after the Paris attacks that occurred yesterday in Paris. So any of those guys, of you guys out there in Europe, my support for your countries. Us being Americans over here, we sometimes get a bad rap. Honestly, our governments are a mess. We all know this. The bad policies, bad immigration policies for the last 50, 60 years after World War II have really created this big mess that we're all part of. And the reality is, we all need to understand that Islam is not a peaceful religion, and we need to address that, and we need to just, right between the eyes with the truth. Islam is not a peaceful religion, and here's the proof to that. I cannot go to Saudi Arabia tomorrow and start a Baptist church in Saudi Arabia. I cannot go to Iran next week and start a Baptist church in Iran. I will be arrested and put in prison. Okay? If they come to, say, your country in UK or my country in the US, they can open a mosque. They can practice their religion freely in our countries. Okay, that's the proof right there. It's not reciprocal relationship. Okay, I was out working the other day and I passed 2 Hindu temples. Okay, 2 Hindu temples within a mile of each other. So that's how tolerant we are. And unfortunately, maybe all of this tolerance and in the name of freedom, they are going to steal our freedom. So it's a little food for thought, but my support goes out for your countries. If the crap hits the fan, so to speak, I'm sure our country will be, have your back. Even though in the past the Europeans haven't always had our back. So that's not how I roll. So yeah. So if you have friends or relatives that were involved, terrible, but we got to take those feelings of frustration and anger, and we need to direct them to better policies with our governments, and put a stop to this nonsense. If we can defeat the Nazis, right, and fascism, and the things we were dealing with Japan and Imperial Japan, I think we can pretty well squash the Muslims down pretty good. So that's what it is. They want to say, well, it's extremists. Well, I don't know. I haven't read the Quran from front to back, but from what I understand, it basically says kill the infidels, okay, which is unbelievers. I've read the Christian Bible, and there's nothing in there that says I'm supposed to go kill Islamic people because they don't believe in my religion. So anyways, put that out there. Other happenings, really just looking forward to having some downtime. I'm going to be shutting my business down by December 20th for the season. So once we get through the holidays, my hobby time will be freed up quite a bit, and I'll be able to throw up videos probably a couple a week on various projects I'm working on. I never did get the D-Day board started. That is something that's still on the back burner. That's something I would like to do, is building my D-Day board section for my Flames of War board. For a beach landing section, I can actually just add on to the board I currently use. So yeah, so that's basically what's been going on with me. Really sorry for the delay. I've been getting some messages. We're put some more videos up. We need more battle reports, and that's coming, guys. Just hang tight with me. I still have a busy schedule up ahead for the next several weeks, but I will throw videos up, just as often as I can. Feel free to comment on the things I've touched on, especially the Games Workshop. Are you a Flames a fantasy player who's gotten basically screwed by Games Workshop? Also, if you're a Kings of War player, let me know how you may have transitioned from Games Workshop to Kings of War, and how that went for you. Maybe any tips that you could give myself or other players that are in this same predicament and looking to convert over to a new rule set and converting armies and those sort of things. And those of you that have even the comments about all these attacks in France. I heard a statistic this morning on the news. There's been over 150 Islamic attacks in Europe, and 80% of those attacks have been occurring in France. So, what I understand is that there's neighborhoods in France where the police won't even go. We have that problem here in the States. There are areas in some of these cities, and in our city in Columbus, Ohio, there are areas that the police don't like to go into unless they go in mass with several police units because the crime is so bad. Folks, that's getting ridiculous. I mean, my wife and I are thinking about going and getting our concealed carry permits so we can carry a gun because crime is getting so bad over here in the States. And we're worried about terrorist attacks and this and that. And look, the bad guys have got to be snuffed out. It's that simple. Because we can't live like this, guys. We can't, you know, Paris is a gun-free zone. Well, if some of the people in that concert were law-abiding, gun-carrying citizens, which most people that carry a gun, you know, here in the States, we're allowed, most states in Ohio, you're allowed to carry a concealed gun on you. You can't put it in a holster where everyone can see. It has to be concealed. But you have to go through some training and some licensing. It's not very expensive. And then purchase your weapon, and you can at least protect yourself. You can protect your family. I mean, we protect ourselves here. We're avid gun enthusiasts and owners in our household. And I want you to think, if just 2 people had been packing 9mm in that crowd and started firing back at these guys, that there would be a lot of people alive today if they could have been able to defend themselves. And a lot of the shootings we've had in the U.S. in the last couple of years have been in gun-free zones. So, you know, feel free to comment on that. You know, let's not, you know, get into this nastiness, because when I see nasty comments, it's just click, click, and you're gone. No comment, and you won't be able to comment anymore. So let's keep the comments, you know, constructive. So yeah, we're open to all that kind of stuff on the channel, as long as it's civil and it's constructive and it's a respectful discussion, so to speak. So I'll let you guys get going. Shout out to all of you. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate the comments. We got some awesome viewers out there who really put in some excellent comments on strategy and army building, modeling tips. You know, I really thank you for that, and I'll be looking forward to speaking to you soon.